Welcome to the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may have missed, with your hosts AJ Kuti and Jason Gordon. Hey everybody, we're back. We're Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may not have prepared you for. I'm AJ, and with me today is my co-host Jason. Jason, how you doing?
Doing great, AJ. Good.
Boy, it's been a long week. Has it been for one for you?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this 4th of July weekend.
Oh, no kidding. I am looking forward to that. Being able to we have classes off the beginning of next week, so it's going to be nice. Let's get into this episode. Last episode, we talked about different types of classes. So we talked about the hybrids, the face-to-face, the synchronous, the asynchronous. On this episode, we are going to continue on with the College 101 series. We're going to be in chapter 4 this time. And really, we're really starting with the first part of a mini-series. This is really a 2-part series within the College 101 series. And we're going to be dealing with the academic side and how to get the most out of it. So I'm really looking forward to that. And especially the next one too, because we're going to be talking about the non-academic side, and we all like to have fun. So that's what I'm super pumped about talking about that today, and then also on the next episode too. Hopefully, you'll be there for that as well. Jason, are you looking forward to that?
Absolutely. These topics are right in, I think, both of our interest wheelhouses. So yeah, if I'm ready to jump into it.
Oh man, yeah.
Before we do, though, I want to remind everybody our website is Reschool'd.com. That's Reschool with a D. Visit there to get an update on our most recent episodes, our series, things like that. Learn more about us. Also visit our social media handles on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and then, of course, on your favorite podcasting platforms, Google, Apple, Spotify. Make sure to follow us, hit that like button, get notifications when we put a new episode out. So,
absolutely. And two, also, when you go to the website, if you go to Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, leave us a comment. Let us know if you have any questions that you'd like answered or ideas for future topics. Or the one I really hope that you take advantage of, because we actually do, we love this, is that you share with us some successes that you may be you're having in your life right now, whether it be in school or whatnot, because we do want to celebrate with you. I mean, this is the whole point of this podcast, is to help you out in your success through college and career afterwards. And so we'd love to hear back, your success stories from hopefully the stuff that we've talked about.
Hearing from you is probably the biggest reward here when we see that we're having an impact and we're seeing that this is helping people. So please do.
Oh, man, yeah. Let's get to the quick question of the day. And this one goes into the academic side of how to get the most out of your college experience. Is there one thing, academically speaking, you would change or do differently about your college career?
Yes. Early on, I picked a major that I ultimately didn't go with because I believe it led to a career path that I wanted, that I ultimately changed my mind about. So if I were going to do something different there, I would honestly have gone into a different concentration early on. But even after I figured out what I wanted to do, I finished my major relatively early. And a lot of the time I spent that senior year, I would say, I didn't get as much out of the college experience as I wanted. I probably spent more time working and things like that. So I would have refocused myself and tried to continue to improve as an individual a little longer. I know that can be tiring. I know you see the finish line and things like that, but I would have changed that. That 4 years is a time when you not only learn things, but you change as a person and you develop. So I would say 1 year out of the 4 that I spent in undergraduate, I kind of abandoned that mission.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff I'd change probably, but there's one that just keeps coming to mind, and it really has to do with this 2-part series. I wish I would have, laid off focusing on what we're going to talk about in the next series, which is the fun stuff, and really focused in more on the academic side, which is this series. I wish I would have applied myself to the point where I know I could. Now that I'm the age that I am, I'm older, supposed to be more mature. I can look back and say, I probably could have done a little bit better. I could have spent more time, been more dedicated, more disciplined. And I wasn't, because part of me just wanted to have fun. Like most students, they just want to have fun. And looking back, I kind of wish I would have taken it a little bit more serious, which granted I did, but I know I could have done better. I was that student, again, going back to what I've said from the very beginning with the strategically lazy. I remember I was studying for an exam and my wife was studying for an exam. We were taking the class together. So it was my girlfriend at the time. And she was studying hard. I mean, she had been studying for weeks. And I asked her, like, what are you studying for? And she's like, well, I want to get the 100. I want to get 100 on the exam. And then she looked at me and said, what are you studying for? I said, I want to get a 90 because it's still the same grade you get. It's an A is an A. And, A is a 4.0. It doesn't matter if you get a 90 or 100, which granted, she got the 100 and I didn't even come close to the 90. But that one hurt. That's why I said she was the curve buster, but she was good at that.
So I was having a conversation with my brother the other day, and he and I had a very similar path going to college and things like that. He went into business, more technical side of things, and ultimately he's an IT person, right? He does a lot of programming and stuff, but they would consider him on the information technology side. But anyway, that being said, he regretted in undergraduate not coming out with a specific skill that he valued so much later on. He wished he'd changed his major to computer science rather than literature, because he just felt like those skills that you come out with were more important. I took the opposite approach, and I said, well, I knew I was going to go to graduate school. Honestly, for undergraduate, those courses any of the experiential things you could have done, from studies abroad to involvement with your professors and things like that, things that we're going to talk about more in this episode, I felt like those things were more valuable to me at that point. It was then that I was developing again as a human being. The technical skills that you learn, they tend to come at any point in time that you do those on a regular basis, and they tend to flee so quickly when you're not doing them on a daily basis. But the ability to think and adding other people's perspectives, adding empathy, the ability to recognize other people's points of view and internalize that in your thought process, that was just more important to me. So, but I think there is, a happy medium between the two. Identifying some skills that you definitely want to leave college with, some things that are going to take you forward in whatever you want to do career-wise, but also equally focusing on the personal development side. In business school, you and I both are business professors. I think we see a lot more of the skill-based focus with students than we do on the just developing as a human being. So honestly, I guess depending on the major you're going into or what you're interested in, how you balance those. I didn't balance from my side the right way. It sounds like you on your side.
I was swinging more on the other side of fun.
Right. So, where is the balance there? I would have changed the balance for me, and it sounds like you would have changed the balance for you.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the main topic, because I think that's a perfect lead into that. So this whole mini series that we're doing, so again, it's a 2-part series. This one, we're dealing with the academic side of getting the most out of college. The next one, we're going to be talking about the non-academic side. But before we get into any of that, let's really talk about and almost define, what does it mean to really get the most out of college? And we're going to stick with, obviously, this one academically. So what does it mean to get the most out of college academically?
Well, if I were to define that, I would say, well, there's the learning aspect, okay? And if you're going to say the learning aspect, the things that you internalize, the concepts, the theories, the practical skills you develop, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the stepping stone towards a career, the credentials you get behind it, the reputation that precedes you as being a graduate in this concentration or things like that. So it's the things that affect how other people see you in the career path and the steps it allows that way. And then just in the education portion, I would subdivide it even further and go back to that well-rounded learning, the ability to think versus the technical skills that you acquire as part of your learning process. So I guess you could say training versus education. So I'm going to subdivide it like that and say that's what it means to get the most out of college. However you want that balance to be, getting the most in those areas.
Yeah, I think balance is the key, especially with the academic side of it, because there is that line of, especially what I'm dealing with now, is there's a line of students focus so much on grades that they forget the learning side of it. And then you don't want to focus so much on learning and not get the grade side of it, because the grades may help you, especially if you want to go to grad school or whatnot. So there is that balance. One of my favorite quotes is Albert Einstein's quote about education. Education is what remains after one is forgotten what one has learned in school. And I think it's spot on.
I've got another paraphrased quote from Einstein as well that said, common sense is nothing but a collection of prejudices that you develop early in your life.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
that goes back to my reinforcement of why you need the college to, in really appreciate, understand, recognize, and empathize with the points and views or approaches of other people on these types of things. It was interesting you said that the learning side of school is different than the grade side. I definitely think that's true as well, because many of our students who really get into the material and understand it and want to, I don't know, just have a better working knowledge of it are not the ones that make your best grades. And the students that make your best grades oftentimes are the ones who don't understand the material as well as others. So anyway, I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more about that as we work our way through here.
Yeah, and continuing on this, and I don't wanna continue to harp on this, but I think it's what you're saying to a degree, learning is different than grades, but I also think when you put grades first as the focus, the learning is gonna have an issue, like, your learning is gonna take a hit. But if you put the focus on learning, the grades doesn't necessarily have to take a hit.
I agree.
That's one of the things, like, one of the best pieces of advice I ever had was when you study purely for the sake of learning, not for the sake of the grade, because the grade will naturally follow. And I think that went with me as I was going through college because I struggled with that. I mean, naturally, when you're in high school, your whole focus is on grades and not necessarily all of learning. But when you get into college, you want to get that learning. You want to get that education side, the things that's going to take you far. You're not memorizing one thing. You're learning how to do a bunch of things within that subject.
I agree with you. I would say there's one competing argument there, just to put it out on the table.
Sure.
We did that dichotomy of learning versus, how,
Dichotomy, big
yeah,
word.
yeah, right. Of, personal development, skill development versus how it precedes you in terms of your career, your reputation, that type of thing. A lot of people want that grade because they know that that's going to be a huge factor for getting into graduate school or for getting into a particular job field. Your management consulting firms want to see somebody with a 3.5 or above, right? You want to get into finance, you need to have that 3.5 or above. Graduate schools, particularly top graduate school programs, they want to see really good GPAs in undergraduate as well as acceptance exams. So it becomes almost a negative reinforcement if you have your long-term plans in place that says, I've got to go on to graduate school for this. I would say particularly for somebody like a doctor going to medical school, they may, I would say in a way, have to focus on the grade more than they focus on the learning
Yeah, of course.
aspect, just because of that reinforcement that comes from the entrance exam to school and the requirements.
Yeah, I usually tell my students, like, it sucks because it is the way it is. There's nothing much we can do about it. But I don't feel like grades themselves is a good representation or evaluation for a student's knowledge in the class. It just shows you how well you can do this work for the purpose of this class, but it doesn't really tell you how much you can learn, how much you've learned.
I would agree.
And I wish there was a better way we can do that because I hate the fact that focus is so much on grades.
I frequently told my wife, in a perfect world, I would not have to design short answer and multiple choice tests and things like that. I mean, to have that old model of you could do individual assessments that are through personal interview where you talk through scenarios and things like that. But honestly, the way our system's set up, it's not made for that, right? It was made for that when a professor was assigned for 3 months, maybe a group of 30 students, and you spent all day together and you disseminated knowledge through practical experience and mutual feedback between the students and the professor, and between the students as much as from the professor, the integration of works from outside resources, not just a textbook that you follow, but all of these readings that basically took your mind to different places, different thought processes. That would be amazing. But that's not the way our system's set up anymore. And it hasn't been for a long time. But, with that being said, it means that there needs to be a restructuring of not the system itself, because that's not going to change very quickly, but the students' understanding of what to expect academically. And to the topic of this podcast, how do you get more out of the experience academically if you know that this is the structure? So how are you going to deal with it?
Yeah, and I'll end on this question. I'll end the question here because we need to get on to the. I want to get on to the next one because I think they're the next one's really good. The question was, what does it mean to get the most out of college academically? And I think of the word just being used, the most, which means it's more than just the standard. So the standard is just going to class, getting the work done, getting a grade, whether it be C, B, A, whatever you want, but just getting that and being done. We're looking to get more out of that. That's, I mean, the most out of it. How can we exceed that standard? So the next question, do you think colleges do enough to help students get the most out of college academically?
I'm going to qualify this answer
Of
yes,
course we are.
no, right? When it comes to making the grade, when it comes to passing the course, colleges do an amazing job. There is so many study resources. There is mentoring, there's tutoring, there's third-party learning platforms, everything from LinkedIn Learning to study centers, test banks, things like that, online course practice material. There's just so much money and effort invested into students' success when it comes to passing the professor's tests. So that's the yes. The no is the structure of education itself makes it difficult for many of those students who really want to get into something and live it, to it to be the driving force in their academic life. It makes it difficult the way things are structured, the pace of semesters, the way you have to examine whether 40 to 160, depending on how large your class is for a specific section, knows the material. So it inhibits a lot of the ways in which professors could, or the administration collectively with professors could promote overall learning and development instead of just checking the box that you can pass these types of tests.
Yeah, I'm pretty old school when it comes to my mentality of college, in that I do think they do a lot for students. Do they do everything? No. But are they open to facilitate everything for students? Yes. And so what I mean by that is I think there is an onus on the college to help students in the best way they can to be able to succeed in their career and later on in life to the best of their abilities. But I also think there's an onus on the students to come forward and try to get the college to pull stuff out of the college too, because college has resources that a lot of students may not know about, that they can do things. The students may think of something that they may think, oh, this is going to help more students if we get this started on school. So it's up to the students to come up to the college and say, hey, we would like to do this. And most colleges are not going to have a problem whatsoever. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think the college is doing a lot, but the fact that they're open to facilitate more, it's just the onus is on the student to come forward. I think that shows that they're wanting the best for the students.
Agreed. And if there is one thing the college could do more of in that regard, is emphasizing the ability of students to do these things, but also attempting in some way to motivate or encourage students to undertake these activities. Directed studies, right, with professors, research projects that can count as a grade that can take you across semesters, so it can count more than just a simple 3-hour class that counts in one semester, right? That type of thing. Integrating cooperatives. Now, cooperatives are not common in any programs other than engineering, or in some cases, you don't call them cooperatives, but education and health. But business, your social sciences, your liberal arts studies, the ability to integrate some of those things in so that you have, like I say, that in comprehensive environment where you are able to live school through work, through play, and through the formal education setting. I think there could be more of that.
All right. Well, Before we got on the podcast today, I was actually did a quick search on just some ideas that maybe I couldn't think of. I mean, I threw some ideas that just off the top of my head know that are out there for students, but I also did a quick search, and so I'm going to list some things that I found that would fall up under examples of things colleges do to help students get the most out of their college academically. So the most obviously the most common one that most colleges have tutoring services. They have some kind of a lot of them have writing centers or math centers. They also do very well with engagement with faculties and other peers. So your connection that you get with the faculty may lend to that faculty writing you a letter of recommendation for something. They also have honor societies, career counseling centers. They really push heavy on communications. So you learn how to communicate in a very professional way, or hopefully you do. Disability services and resources. You also have technology sources. So a lot of times students get either free or discounted software for their computers. You also have the library. And when I say library, I'm talking about things outside of the realm of books in a building, but they also give you the ability to do research when you need to. And most libraries have breakout rooms to do like group studying that you can reserve during finals week or whatnot. So are there any ones that I'm forgetting or that comes to mind, Jason?
Well, I think your list is pretty comprehensive. Physical space is obviously something that has come a long way. Everything from whiteboards, integrative centers, data centers, things like that. Technological resources are amazing. They've come a long way. Your career development services, trying to integrate your learning into the career path, all of those are really instrumental. I think now colleges are putting a lot more weight on internships and things like that to be integrated, the experiential learning aspect of college. They're integrating these things structurally. But once again, pretty much what we're doing on this podcast, the education about life that goes into how the student approaches the use of these is where the gains can be made.
Well, is of the ones that I spoke about and the ones that you talked about, is there one that you would feature as maybe more advantageous to students to take advantage of, or is there one better than the other? I guess you would say.
The one, well, there's probably two or three that I would point out. Obviously, the tutoring centers are extremely important. Okay, that's going to help you make the grade under the current system. The professor-student relationship, the mentoring model that
That's
goes in
mine.
there, that's really, really important now, as much as ever, because the workforce is changing, the college environment is changing, the expectations of professors as being kind of the gatekeeper for crossing that threshold is changing somewhat. One that I would like to see more focus on, once again, is that integration of experiential learning, primarily through internships and cooperatives that integrate private businesses and things like that into the process of student learning.
Yeah, mine is easily the relationship, the faculty student relationship, the engagement that you have there, that the relationships that you build among the faculty, because to me, that's going to pay dividends in more ways than one. That's going to pay dividends not only within your college career, but also your professional career after college, because a lot of these professors are going to be writing you letter of recommendations for either jobs or for grad school or whatnot. And it's also good to just, we're going to be talking about this in a couple episodes too, but mentoring, having that relationship is having a mentor. It's almost you're not having, it's not a technical mentor, but it's a pseudo mentor where you have that relationship with somebody that wants the best for you. And so when you have questions, you can come to them and ask them. I still talk to students that have graduated from our school. Like they had my class 8 years ago and they still text me and they say, "Hey, how's your family doing?" And I love it. I absolutely love it. I look forward to when I get those texts. Because it's still that connection. And when they need something, I'm happy to help. They've actually come to help me sometimes if I needed something. It's a great relationship outside of the scope of college too. So that's mine by far. Being able to connect with a teacher or teachers that'll allow you to keep that relationship for years to come.
Absolutely. And I'll go ahead and plug one tool for that. LinkedIn is your best friend. It's
Hashtag not a sponsor.
Yeah, well, definitely not. We're not being
Not
sponsored
yet.
there.
LinkedIn,
but
come to us if you need us.
but LinkedIn is a great tool in that regard. Connecting with your professors, messaging them through it, keeping them apprised of what you're doing professionally or personally, whether you post that publicly as part of your profile or whether you're just communicating with your professor about it. It's a great place to put your ideas out there. It's a thought center just as much as it is a professional development, personal promotion, or professional promotion site. So I'm just like you. I value that student interaction. I value the relationships that continue after school when they're entering the professional world, but also when they come back and ask questions about what they should do, where they should go in life, right? Those types of questions, they make a big difference for us in terms of motivating us to help students get the most out of their academic experience.
Sure. Well, let's kind of move forward with that professional or that professor relationship. Should students make their learning expectations known to the professor?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It will affect how professors interact with you, what it will help change the expectations that the professors have of themselves in giving you what you need in terms of your learning environment, your learning expectations. Okay. So, absolutely, I cannot endorse that enough.
Yeah, and I can't speak. Obviously, I can't speak for all professors because you're going to have different experiences with different professors. But I would venture to say, a vast majority of the professors want you to succeed. And every semester, I've always given the same promise to every class that comes into my class for the beginning of the semester, and that is, I'll work as hard as you do. If you want to work hard, I will be there to work with you to make sure you get whatever grade you want. But if you don't care, I'm not going to take that my focus away from somebody else who does care. And so, yeah, absolutely. Putting that expectation out there for the professors to know, I think it does help me in so many different ways other than also just creating that standard for you. Because when you do come to, I have a lot of students that come and say, well, do I have the possibility of doing well on the next test? Well, if you don't tell me what your expectations are and what well is, because well is a relative term, I don't know what to tell you. If you're
Mhm.
looking for a C, then your possibility of making a good grade is pretty high. If you're
Mhm.
wanting an A, well, then it's going to be a little bit lower. It's just the amount of time that you put. So that expectation up front allows me to cater my answers better to your situation rather than just the class as a whole.
Absolutely, that makes sense, and I I agree with your point of view 100%. You're not going to get any argument out of me there.
What do you think students need to adjust or mold their expectations about college academics to meet what the college offers?
Absolutely. I've spoken on this over and over, and it's a point of frustration for me that I feel like many colleges are gravitating towards that high school model, and we're starting to see colleges look and students think of it as the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th grade, where I'm a much bigger fan of college as being a transformational environment. So that traditional approach to how you step through the different years in college and going through your major and the general education courses. I mean, students obviously want to succeed. Their metric for succeeding is making a good grade oftentimes. But if there is something that, once again, they could change about their experience to get more out of it, it means going beyond that structure. It means striving to get more from the experience while still meeting the standards of the institution. And I think that starts with being aware of the things that you can do, the extracurricular learning, the experiential learning, the relationships that you can have with the faculty and staff there who can help you along in your learning experience. And so in that way, students need to alter their expectations of, I just need to make whatever grade I desire in this class versus I need to really make this a transformative experience. And this is how I'm going to do it. And they're going to have to learn how to do it. It's going to be different for everybody based on your major, based on your expectations, and based on your time and resource availability. But there certainly needs to be some level of adjustment on the student side as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I mean, your expectations for college as a whole is going to change just as much as your expectations for each class individually is going to change. I mean, you're going to go into them. I mean, I took classes where I thought they were going to be easy A's and they ended up being a lot harder in my expectations, where I thought I was going to be able to have a lot of free time to do other non academic, extracurricular stuff. I wasn't, because I was actually having to work pretty hard to get through that class. Uh, I said before, when I was going through with the with the Hope Scholarship, that they checked it every 30 hours. So when I was coming up to that checkpoint of going past 30 hours, I had to strategically come up with the class schedule in order for me to give myself the best chance of not falling below that 3.0 threshold. And so my expectations of when I thought I was going to graduate or the order in which the classes I was going to take changed. Then you throw in, because I played soccer in college and you had to worry about the association, the requirements for the association of how many classes you have to take, how many, per semester, all this kind of stuff. Then it really threw a monkey wrench into things. So there's a saying and other things, and I think it works really well with here, is that you just need to stay liquid. You need
Mhm.
to be flexible. You need to understand that things are not going to go 100% the way that you plan them to. Stay liquid, stay flexible, and just take them as they come. Don't stress out about them, because that's life. I mean, life is always going to throw you, hurdles in front of you. It's just a matter of how you get over them. And so I think that's a fair assessment of how college is and expectations.
That's extremely good, sound advice. It's honestly something that I need to internalize little bit better for myself professionally these days.
Well, one last question, and we'll end it here. And this is just kind of an off the cuff question, but do you think certain professor rating websites help students get the most out of the college academically?
I don't think they're extremely effective in that way. I do think it allows students to, without going to professors or staff or asking students other opinions, they can see which professor is highly rated in a certain way. They can see whether they're regarded as being easy or difficult and things like that. Again, if students are mapping their own path, they may seek to avoid the difficult professors. Those difficult professors may be the place where you'll learn the most or get the most out of. So, in a way, I think it could be a benefit, yes, that you avoid professors who really aren't going to put the effort in there. But in a way, also, it can dissuade you based upon the opinions of others who do not have the same learning objectives as you.
Yeah, I think it's going into those websites and looking at the rating alone is only going to give you a very small part of the story. Being able to look at the reviews, that's one thing. But when you look at somebody that says, oh, they've got a terrible rating, but it's because they're too hard or they didn't do this, or, my personal favorite is they make us write too much, those kind of things, then it's such a bias rating that it's not going to give you the information that you need to make a decision based on what's best for you. Now, if you're solely looking at it for the purpose of getting the best grade, then sure. I mean, why not? I mean, I've done that. I remember doing something like that where you talk to your friends and say, "Hey, I need an easy A for this because it's not part of my major. I just need to get it done because it's in my degree." And so that's one thing, but especially when you're looking towards your major, what you're going to be doing in your career, I want that challenge because I want to know that I'm going to learn something. I want to know that I'm going to, get out of there knowing something that's going to help me for the next class and then on to my profession.
That makes complete sense. Absolutely.
Well, cool. Well, I think that was a pretty good show. I enjoyed this one. I'm really going to enjoy the next one. The next one is the second part of this mini series on how to get the most out of college. But this one, we're going to be dealing with the non-academic side, the fun stuff, what we think of when we first think about going to college. If you like what you hear, want to support the show, please leave us a 5-star review if you feel so inclined. Make sure you hit us up on the socials. Leave us a question, topic, or again, if you have anything to give us as in terms of success so we can celebrate with you, please do that. But before we go, Jason, you got anything?
Just get those questions in there. The things that you're curious about are things of interest to us. We want to talk about them.
Yeah, man. Well, I hope you'll have a wonderful week, whatever day you're watching this or listening to this. But other than that, y'all have a good one. Goodbye.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Reschool'd podcast. Be sure to head over to reschool'd.com for news and other information on things we're getting into.